Human Resource Management, a Postmodern Reading Part 3. This article was written by Dr. Dhammika Jayawardena and Dr. Prajna Seneviratne. The heading is Crafting HRMism, the Language Game. Crafting HRMism, the new word HRMism. The epistemological limitation of modernist methodologies employed to identity and fix HRM lead to many conceptual and theoretical and conceptual ambiguities which characterize the discourses and practices of HRM. Discourses and practices of HRM. Then the epistemological limitation of modernist methodologies employed to identity and fix HRM lead to many conceptual and theoretical ambiguities which characterize the discourses and practices of HRM. In the light of Keenoy's, the person who is doing research, argument, what we attempt to reread is not HRM but HRMism. Then these two authors try to reread what? Not the HRM, HRMism. The HRMism means the various meaning, disclosures and practices which have come to be included within HRM. HRMism කියලා කියන්නේ HRM කියන වපසරිය තුල අන්තර්ගත වෙලා තියෙන විවිධ අදහස්, various meaning, අනාවරණයන්, disclosures, practices, පරිචයන්, මේ විවිධ අදහස්, අනාවරණයන් සහ පරිචයන් මානව සම්පත් කළමනාකරණය තුල ගැබ් වෙලා තියෙන ඒවා නැවත reread කිරීම තමයි මේ authorස්ලගේ ප්‍රධාන පරමාර්ථය වෙන්නේ. Then what are the things they mean the researchers need to do? They try to explore the agenda of gender of HRMism. They try to find agenda of gender of HRMism. Then for the purpose of reviewing agenda of gender of HRMism, the language represented in HRMism is not an innocent. It means to exchange meaning implanted in HRM. Then they emphasize then language in the HRMism is not an innocent, not in the innocent one. I mean, අහිංසක දෙයක් නෙවෙයි. It means exchange meaning implanted. මේ අදහස් මෙන්න මේ HRMism තුල තියෙන language එක implanted කරපු දෙයක් කියලා තමයි මේ authorsලා argue කරන්නේ. But is mean to support the gender stereotyping in organization. It means gender stereotyping in organization. And the meaning embedded in HRM itself are signifiers of the gender stereotyping. Then the meaning embedded in HRM. HRM තුල embed කළා. ඇතුල් කළ තියෙන අදහස් itself are signifiers of the gender stereotyping. මේ gender stereotyping එක විශේෂීකරණය කළා නැත්නම් වැදගත් කරලා පෙන්වීමක් තමයි සිද්ධ කරලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා මේ අය argue කරනවා. In all post-structuralism, where language is a central factor, post-structuralism වලදී language එක තමයි central focus එක වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. Language has been defined. How we are going to define language? Language can be defined the possibility of meaningful existence at the same time as it limits them. Through language, our sense of ours are distinct subjectivities connect, constitute through the language our sense of ourselves as distinct subjectivities constitute. Subjectivities constitute through a countless of what post-structuralist term discursive discursive practice කියන්නේ විවාදාත්මක පරිචයන් discursive practices of talk, text, writing, cognitions, argumentations, and representation generally. Then, according to this literature, language is a subjectivity, a subjective දෙයක්. Then subjective දෙයක් හින්දා it is countless of what post-structuralist term. මේ post-structuralistලා කියනවා language කියලා කියන්නේ discursive practices විවාදාත්මක පරිචයක් කියන දෙයක්. මොනවාද මේ practices? Talk, text, writing, cognition, argumentations and representations. Talk කතා කිරීම, text ලියලා තියෙන දේ, writing ලියන දේ, cognition අපේ ප්‍රඥාව, ඊට පස්සේ argument තර්කය, representation අපි ඉදිරිපත් කරන දේවල්. මේව තමයි මේ discursive practice එකේ තියෙන්නේ කියලා කියනවා. Then another subheading, the language and HRMism. For Derrida is a very famous researcher. For Derrida, the meaning of a word is constantly deferred because it can have meaning only in relation to its difference form, other word given system of language. This author emphasizes researchers do explore the ways in which disclosures are implicated in relations of power. But researchers to explore the way in which disclosures are implicated in relation of powers. Language, however, is not merely an innocent means of exchanging only ideas. Then language is not merely an innocent means of exchanging only ideas. භාෂාව කියලා කියන්නේ අදහස් වමාරු කිරීම සඳහා පමණක් තියෙන දෙයක්ම නෙවෙයි. ඒ සඳහා වූ දෙයක්ම නෙවෙයි. එක පරමාර්ථයක්. That is one purpose of using language to exchange the idea, but it is not the whole thing. It is not the entire thing. But is used as a means to support the power relation in a society. Then we use language support the power relationship in a society. Then through the language we can present the power relation in the society. As Derrida cited that language appears the stranger as it may seem that signifier of the signifier no longer define accidental doubling and pollen secondary. Then language appear the stronger, amutu, as it may seem that signifier of the signifier. Harumkaryaage harumkarya. Harumkarya karwa. No longer define accidental doubling and pollen secondary. Then signifier of signifier. Signifier of signifier describe when the opposing the movement of language. Movement of language. Occurs in the movement of language. In its origin, to be sure, but one can already suspect that an origin whose structure can be expressed as signifier of the signifier, hide and erase itself its own production. Then here say origin to be sure, but one can already suspect that an origin whose structure can be expressed, signifier of the signifier hides and erase itself, its own production. මේ අදහස තුල තියෙන දේ ඇත්ත දේ වචනය හෝ වාක්‍යයක තුල තියෙන ඇත්ත දේ ඉග්නෝර් කරන ඉරේස් කරන හයිඩ් කරලා වෙන අදහසක් එන විදිහට දෙන්න පුළුවන් කියලා කියනවා. Then these authors argue reality of HRism is a language construct. HRM is a language construct. ගොඩනැගීම භාෂාමය ගොඩනැගීම. As such, HRism is not able to represent the real in organization as far as especially female labor is concerned. Then these authors argue within the HRism they are failed to represent the female labor. HRism තුල female labor එක represent කරන්නේ නැහැ කියලා තමයි මේ කට්ටිය කියන්නේ. Thus, through female labor is significant factor of the organization. HRism carries gendered language. When we are reviewing the organizational performance, there are big contribution given by the female. However, when we are reviewing HRism, it carries gender language. නමුත් ඒ කට්ටිය HRism තුල gender language එකක් පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ. Gendered language එකක් පාවිච්චි කරනවා පේනවා කියලා කියනවා. As more women and ethnic minorities join the professional and managerial and organization ranks, there will be implicated for management practices, both theoretical and practical. However, currently we can see there are many women and ethnic minorities join with the professional and managerial position in the organization. Then management practices and policies which once served organizations staffed primarily by male may be reduced out of action and may create the obstacle for advancement of women in organization. Then we know there are many female labor and ethnic minorities in the top position of the organization. However, when we are reviewing management practices and policies in the organization, they start primarily by male by the reduction of action and may create the obstacle for advancement of women in the organization. I think you have another term for this statement, glass ceiling concept. Then there are policies, there are practices which lead to laid a glass for the career advancement of the women. Therefore, authors argue HRism. What is HRism? According to them, the regulator of managing workforce in so-called modern organization is not only unable to create for the emerging requirements of female labor, but even unable to represent them. Then, according to this argument, they propose HRism is failed to represent the female labor in the organization. At the surface level, HRism contains gender neutral language. At the surface level, බලන අපි යම්කිසි දෙයක් උඩින් බලනකොට අපිට ඒ දේ පේන දේ උඩින් බලනකොට HRism අපිට පේන්නේ gendered natural language. ඒ කියන්නේ gender එකක් base වෙලා නැහැ කියලා. But it carries gender jargon in a quite concealed manner. බොහොම concealed සංගවල තියෙන ආකාරයෙන් බැලුවම මේ language එක තුල HRism language එක තුල gendered jargon එකක් gender oriented word set එකක් දකින්න පුළුවන්. උදාහරණ manpower planning, man, manning table, man, and the like are not gendered natural, then we usually use the term the and when we refer the when t separate from other two words, it is he. The කියන වචනේ t අයින් කරාම තියෙන්නේ he. ඒකට අපි නිරන්තරයෙන් the කියලා කියනකොට t අයින් කරාම authors ලට අනුව එතන imply කරනවා he කියන්නේ ඔහු කියන්නේ male oriented කියන එක. Then manpower planning, manning table, all these jargon represent masculine value, male oriented value, and contain masculine practices by creating phallic as the pre-eminent center in the organization. Phallic කියන්නේ ලිංග වැනි ලිංගිකත්වයේ පදනම් creating phallic as the pre-eminent center in organization. එතකොට දැන් පැහැදිලි වෙන ඇති HRism according to the authors contain masculine values and masculine practices. Therefore, the authors given another sub heading manpower planning. Why we are not use woman power planning. Woman power planning. We use manpower planning, not woman power planning. Then informality facilitated sex discrimination in recruitment and selection practices are evident in insurance industry. It allows male selectors to adopt the word of mouth recruitment, which is likely to exclude women applicants. For example, when considering commitment in the organization, then these authors use another criteria, commitment. When considering commitment in organization, this researcher argues a gender model of commitment may come into play with women being assumed to be less committed than men. Then this author argues, this researcher Dickens argue women being assumed to be less committed, then people in the organization pursue women commitment is less than the men. This will influence decision on selection, appraisal, and etc. This less commitment lead to influence make the decision regarding selection and appraisal. If organizational women marry or have children, this is assumed to have negative effect on their commitment on the job. Then, as usually we know, after marriage of the women or having a children directly affect to the commitment of their job. As they are encumbered by such responsibility වලට අවහිරතාවයක් මෙන්න මේ විවාහ වීම සහ දරුවන් සිටීම කාන්තාවන්ට බලපානවා කියලා research findings වලින් හොයාගෙන තියෙනවා. Such as women are drop out from HRMism. මෙන්න මේ නිසා HRMism වලින් women's-ලා drop out ඉවත් වීම හැර වීම නැත්නම් ඉවත් කිරීම වගේ දේවල් සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙනවා කියනවා. As far as commitment is concerned, women are regarded as either dolly birds without children. Dolly birds කියලා කියන්නේ සිත් කළු ගන්නා ගැහැණියක් කියන එක. Without children, with few responsibilities and hence less reliable. Then you can assume how people perceive the women in the organization. They like dolly birds or few responsibilities and hence less reliable. Or they were married where there was the assumption that they had a husband income to support them, their needs. Then women perceive after marriage husband income is enough to running the day-to-day life. Appraisal, an integral part of performance management that is used in organization to determine distribution of various reward including pay, promotion and training needs, and distribution is concerned. Even where specific objective criteria are being used, it is possible for perception of the characteristics and abilities of men and women as group to affect a manager's perception of the individual abilities, and thus for performance assumed to be gendered. Again, when we are going to appraise the people in the organization, managers give more performance for the male rather than the female. That is the reason of the manager's perception. Then it lead to performance assessment to be gendered. Gender based එකෙන් තමයි performance appraisal එක උනත් සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ කියලා කියනවා. Managers value in different attributes in men than doing in women, which can reinforce gender stereotyping. In reward management in HRMism, performance pay, a mean of encouraging employee commitment, also lead to gendered stereotyping. Pay management ගැන කතා කරත් පිරිමින්ට වැඩි pay එකක් කාන්තාවන්ට අඩු pay එකක් තියෙන තත්ත්වයක් තමයි ලෝකයේ තුල දකින්න පුළුවන්කම තියෙන්නේ පර්යේෂණයන්ට අනුව. In this context, researchers argue the key area of HRMism. What are the key area of HRMism? Selection, performance management, development, reward are derived from the pre-eminent center of organization, masculinity. Then when we are concerning selection, performance management, development, reward, those are based on masculine gender. Thus, modern HRMism is being used as mean to support the gender stereotyping in the organization. Therefore, these two authors conclude HRMism is being used and means to support the gender stereotyping. Gender stereotyping එක තමයි බේස් කරගෙන තියෙන්නේ HRMism වලදී. Accordingly, HRM is a distinctive approach to employment management which seek to achieve competitive advantage through the strategic deployment of highly committed and capable workforce. Highly committed and capable workforce using an integrated array of cultural, structural, and personal techniques. Our rereading, researchers' rereading suggests that the foundation of HRism is not any other secret. It is not a secret, but committed workforce. Since workforce management strategies have shifted from control or traditional oriented strategy to commitment oriented strategies, but that sense organization do make for commitment. Commitment means masculinity. Masculinity. Men's World 2, The Power of Writing. The agenda of gender is evident in text in HRM, in text-anchored management, education in Sri Lanka, where the Anglo American management theories have practices are domination. As this author argues, the notions of writing as currently employed is concerned with neither the act of writing nor the indication, but its symptoms or sign of a meaning that someone might have wanted to express. The notion of writing as currently employed is concerned with neither the act of writing nor the indication, be it symptom or sign of a meaning that someone might have wanted to express. In a current stage, however, the notion of writing seems transfers transfers the empirical characteristic of the author into transcendental anonymity, transcendental anonymity, නිර්නාමිකත්වය, transcendent, උත්තරීතර ආකාරයෙන් නිර්නාමිකත්වය මේකට එබ්බවීමක් සිද්ධ කරනවා කියලා කියනවා. We argue thus empirical characteristic of the author is not free from the context, indeed context bounded one. මේ empirical characteristic of authors ළඟ ගත්තම ඒක free නෑ. Free from context. In these context bounded. ඒක context එකට bounded වෙලා තියෙනවා කියලා කියනවා. And the language in the text here English, a language belong to Germanic of Indo-European in language family itself is a male plus female minus one, male plus female minus. What is the argument developed by these authors? The language usually male plus female minus, and writing itself is a male dominant, not only in the feudalistic society but even now. මේ ලියන කියන දේවල් වල වැඩි domination power එක තියෙන්නේ male ට. ඒක feudalistic society එකේ විතරක් නෙවෙයි, අද උනත් ඒක දකින්න පුළුවන් කියලා ජයවර්ධන 2003 emphasize කරනවා. And jargon of the discipline, HRMism is masculine sign and symbol. Oh, then now these authors emphasize HRMism is masculine sign and symbol, not the feminine sign and symbol. Therefore, they argue there is a hidden deployment of upholding phallic as the dominant symbol in logical created testing managing workforce. Phallic ලිංගිකත්වය as the dominant symbol එකේ ඉන්නවා logically created text in managing workforce. HRMism, the technical jargon and textuality which appears as gendered neutral. සාමාන්‍යයෙන් technical jargons සහ text ගත්තම මේවා gender neutral. එහෙම වුණාට however as evidence of the longevity of gender stereotyping in organization made when rereading with the postmodern sensibility of exploration of gender biasness of text. Then longevity, දිගුකාලීනව දීර්ඝකාලීනව මේ ලියන ලද ටෙක්ස්ට් දිහා බැලුවම gender stereotyping in the organization when rereading with the postmodern sensibility of exploration of gender biasness. මේ ටෙක්ස්ට් වල gender biasness එකක් තියෙනවා කියලා authors කියනවා. Text in HRMism in Sri Lankan context. Text in HRMism in Sri Lanka, which we attempt to reread here, are the outcome of the text constructing appertaining to Sri Lankan University, the University of Sri Jayawardenepura and Open University of Sri Lanka in their text. Then anchored management education, since modern university system of the country is a colonial dowry. University system of the country is a colonial dowry. يعني අපේ ලංකාවේ university පද්ධතිය දුවන්නේ බටහිර ක්‍රමයට. ඒ හින්දා තමයි colonial dowry එකක් විදිහට තමයි මේ university system එක authors දකින්නේ. The Anglo American management theories and practices are the hegemony. Hegemony කියන්නේ ආධිපත්‍යයක් දරන hegemony of management education. මේ management education එක තුල Anglo American management practices එක ලොකු බලපෑමක් කරනවා ලංකාව තුල. It nearly affect the temperament of text which is constructed in post-colonial space. Temperament, අපි text එක ලියනකොට අපි චිත්ත ස්වභාවය තුල මෙන්න මේ කියන Anglo American management theory එහෙම නැත්නම් colonial dowry එකක් විදිහට ලැබිච්ච university system එක තුල අර masculine oriented concepts අපි ලියන්න පටන් අරගෙන තියෙනවා කියලා කියනවා. Management education at university level, however, does not have a long history like other disciplines such as medicine, law, etc. University of Sri Jayawardenepura is the first university that had introduced management education to the university system of the country in 1961 as a part-time degree program under the Faculty of Arts. In 1968, the Department of Management Studies was established. In 1972, the university had established the first Faculty of Management Studies and Commerce in Sri Lankan university system. Then, personal management was a major subject of the degree program offered by the faculty. This is the equally true in the management program of the Open University of Sri Lanka. In its initial program, Diploma in Management Studies, HRM is offered as a major course. At present, HRM is a core course of all degree program. There are 10 of, I think nowadays more than 10 degrees of FMSc, and it is a more course of management program offered by Open University of Sri Lanka as well. Hence, temperament of present text in HRism that we attempt to reread is a historical one. Then you can find special term historical, his, when separate his mean the masculine or male oriented. Thus it carries Anglo American notion of HRism, male plus and female minus jargon, indeed macho management, and represent nature of feudalistic social relations where male-phallic upheld as the pre-eminent center of all human relations by marginalizing female labor. Then here, and represent nurtured mean conserve of feudalistic social relations where male-phallic upheld as the preeminent center of all human relations by marginalizing female labor. අන්තිමේදී වෙලා තියෙන්නේ marginalizing වෙලා තියෙනවා female labor එක. Victim of our rereading are course manual 1 and 2 in HRM written by many hands, men and women of the common degree program of FMSc, USJ, and the course manual in HRM in Diploma in Management written by a men or USL. And we further reread Human Resource Training and Development course manual of the Bachelor of Management Studies of OUSL with the view to exploring not only the agenda of gender in specialization effort of HRism, but also the societal unconsciousness of the female writers when writing in a male dominant since the writer is a woman. දැන් මේකේ පාවිච්චි කරලා තියෙන අපේ කැම්පස් එකේ පාවිච්චි කරන මැනුවල් දෙක මම හිතන්නේ පසු කාලීනව මේක එකට එකතු කරා මැනුවල් දෙක ඊට පස්සේ OUSL එකේ මැනුවල්ස් පාවිච්චි කරලා තියෙනවා. දැන් සමහරක් මැනුවල් ලියලා තියෙන්නේ කාන්තාවෝ. නමුත් කාන්තාවෝ ලිව්වට ඒ ලියපු මැනුවල් වල තියෙන්නේ unconsciously female writers when writing in a male dominant. මේකෙදි වෙලා තියෙන්නේ female writers when writing in a female dominant since writers is a woman. ලියන්නේ කාන්තාව වුණාට ලියවිලා තියෙන්නේ male dominant space එකක් තුල. Content and the form of local text in HRM is a pajamas reproduction of Anglo American knowledge in HRism. Fragile කියලා කියන්නේ දුර්වල කියන එක. දුර්වල. Reproduction of Anglo American knowledge in HRism. Gendered jargon such as manpower planning, manning table, the like are common in text that appears as gendered neutral in the present context. At a surface level, through the jargon appear to be gendered neutral. Gender neutral කියලා පේන්නේ. In real sense, they are manifestations of assertive values of male labor විද්‍යාමාන කරනවා අපි හොඳට මේක බැලුවොත් male values of male labor values of male labor and do not represent the female labor in organization. Thus, jargon has been taken for granted by the writers without considering its gender biasness. Then here say the jargon has been taken අරගන්නවා granted by the writers without considering its gender biasness. Gender biasness එක ගැන හිතන්නේ නැතුව ගන්න. Thus, for instance, what they have written as manpower planning is no more gender neutral term. And this is a sign of masculinity in the planning of manpower. Male labor, manpower, male labor, manpower, man mean male power. As manifesting in HRM, locally created text in HRM also strengthen assertiveness as the organizational value and is another version of macho management what the text recommended as performance evaluation criteria, career development, management of discipline, labor relations, so on that are appeared as gender neutral norms really stand for masculine value. The hypothetical superlivid workers who is in the shadow of text in a symbol of masculinity. Hypothetical superlived යම් තරමින් ඉතා උසස් පුද්ගලයෝ සේවකයෝ who is the shadow of the text in the symbol of masculinity. දැන් මේ text වල පෙන්නන්නේ text වල අර language එක හා පෙන්නනවා මොකද්ද ටිකක් උසස් සේවකයෝ කවුද male oriented අය කියලා මේ argument එකෙන් එනවා. Nature that is regarded as feminine value is out of the textuality of the text. Thus, the texts are unable to get femininity to the organizational discourse. And are unable to manifest the female labor in the organization since the assertiveness is supposed to as doorway organizational success. Even female labor is being encouraged to dressed in the assertive cloth with a view to becoming an effective organizational citizen by the text. එතකොට දැන් මේ assertiveness එක තමයි doorway එක වෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා සමහරක් female laborers ලා කාන්තාවෝ being encouraged to be dressed in the assertive cloth. assertive කියන ඇඳුම ඇඳගත් encourage කරනවා company එක තුල කාන්තාවන්ට කියලා මේ authors ලා argue කරනවා. The agenda of the gender in HRMism even come out in more perceptible manner in logical created text in HRM. What the text carry as manager, worker, employee, manager කිව්වම male, worker කිව්වම male, employee කිව්වම male oriented, masculinity oriented, lawyer, driver, මේවා masculine oriented term. Those are more gender neutral nouns and are sign of masculinity. Masculinity sign එකක් තියෙනවා. Masculinity sign එකක් දකින්න පුළුවන්. ලස්සන වැඩේ not only in male writing but even in female writing the fact is evident. Female ලියන්නෙත් මේ masculine oriented gender එකක් තමයි. For instance, our Random quotation from female writing shows social unconsciousness of female writers in the male dominant. පිරිමි ගැහැණු අය ලියන්නේ පිරිමි dominant එකක් තුල කියලා කියනවා. In this context, authors argue locally created text in HRM is another version of gender stereotyping of the HRism. They not only buttress the concealed agenda of gender in HRism, but also manifesting quite overtly. Then here say they not only buttress the concealed agenda of gender in HRism. මේ HRism වල තියෙන gender of agenda of gender gender එකේ agenda එක අප්‍රකටව concealed අප්‍රකටව ශක්තිමත් කරනවා කියලා කියනවා. buttress කියලා කියන්නේ ශක්තිමත් කරනවා. They not only buttressed concealed agenda of gender in HRism, but also manifesting quite overtly විවෘතවත් සමහරක් වෙලාවට ප්‍රකාශ කරන තැන් අපිට දකින්න පුළුවන්. Thus, as far as managing labor in Sri Lankan context is concerned, the text uphold masculinity as the pre-eminent center in organization by marginalizing femininity. So the text attempt to transmit so-called modern theories and practice in managing workforce. Human relation appears in the text are victim of patriarchal characters of social relations, particularly in feudalistic society. මේ feudalistic society එක තුල තිබිච්ච සමාජ සම්බන්ධතාවය තුල තියෙන පීතෘ මූලික ලක්ෂණ මේ ටෙක්ස්ට් තුලින් දකින්න පුළුවන් කියලා කියනවා. The texts themselves are unable to grasp real in organization context and play with reality in HRM. Thus, they ignore the role of female labor in present organizational context and recommend masculine version of managing labor as the way to cope with internal integration and external adaptation of workforce. Then human resource management concluding remarks. The heading also highlight human man, resource management human resource management. Then there are two terms, masculine oriented jargons, man. HRM, the symbolic process of managing labor in so-called modern organization is unable to represent the female labor. වර්තමානයේ HRMism සංවිධාන තුල මේ female labor present කරන්න බැරි වෙලා තියෙනවා කියලා කියනවා. Then according to the authors, the language evolved in male dominant organizational context with a view to managing male labor is still being used in HRMism. එතකොට මේ authors ලා කියනවා මොකද්ද? The language evolved in the male dominant organizational context with a view to managing male labor still being used in HRMism. තාමත් අපි HRM වල කතා කරනකොට ටෙක්ස්ට් එක ලියනකොට පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ male labor එක ගැන කියලා. As such, through the technical jargon in human resource management appears as gender neutral language at the surface level. There is a hidden deployment of upholding phallic as the dominant symbol, especially in local created text in the human resource management. The technical jargon and textuality, which appears as gender neutral, however, are evident of the longevity of gender stereotyping in organization. In this context, authors argue that the longevity of the language in HRMism as evolved in the male-dominant organizational milieu has created a dilemma of managing labor, especially female labor in present organizational context. ඩෙලමා එකක් තියෙනවා. අපහැදිලි ගැටලුවක් තියෙනවා. Managing labor, especially female labor in the present organizational context. This dilemma is due to the fact of managing female labor through the masculine language, symbol, sign, and the like that are appeared in HRMism, another version of macho management in so-called modern organization. Macho management කියලා කියන්නේ අර ඒකාධිපති නැත්නම් autocratic වාගේ කළමනාකරන ස්ටයිල් එකක් කියන එක. This dilemma rather created a puzzling paradox, especially among female labor, by compelling them to prepare themselves as the more assertive feminine symbols in the world of work. This dilemma further create a puzzling paradox, especially among the female labor, by the compelling them to prepare themselves as the more assertive female symbol. Assertive female symbol assertive female symbol in the world of the work. By knowing female as a minority group in the work organization, since they have been dropped out from the language of managing labor, HRMism. In this context, the authors argue, HRM, the symbolic process of managing labor, per se human resource management, here highlighted man and man.